Back to the channel. Today we're going to unravel some incredibly complex events in Genoa. Rumors are circulating around the Newman family, but what's the truth? In this video, I'll summarize the plot points that will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to see what happens. Welcome back to our channel, passionate soap fans. Today is a truly beautiful day to dive deep into the dramatic, ever-changing world of Genoa City. We have some incredibly emotional, heart-wrenching, and shocking updates prepared just for you. Grab your favorite beverage, settle into a comfortable spot, and let us explore the latest explosive twists and turns together. The sterile, unforgiving scent of the Genoa City Memorial Hospital room hung heavy in the air, but it was the suffocating silence that truly shattered the Newman family. Nikki Newman, the indomitable matriarch who had survived decades of betrayals, kidnappings, and alcoholism, slowly fluttered her eyes open after a grueling, high-stakes surgery to remove a malignant tumor pressing against her optic nerve. The bandages were delicately peeled away by the top neurosurgeons Victor had flown in from New York, but instead of the warm, comforting faces of her beloved family, Nikki was greeted by an impenetrable, terrifying abyss. Total, unrelenting blindness had claimed her. She blinked rapidly, her hands trembling as she reached out into the void, her voice cracking as she whispered that she could not see a single sliver of light. The surgery, intended to save her from this exact fate, had seemingly plunged her into a permanent nightmare. Will Nikki ever be able to find her way out of this suffocating darkness, or is the Newman matriarch doomed to live the rest of her life in the shadows? The collective gasp in the hospital room echoed like a gunshot, signaling the beginning of a profound and devastating despair for the Newman family. Victoria Newman and Nick Newman stood paralyzed at the foot of the bed, their faces pale as they watched their usually fiercely independent mother crumble into a state of sheer panic. The reality of the situation crashed down upon them with the weight of a collapsing skyscraper. This was not merely a medical complication, it was a catastrophic shift in their family dynamic. Nikki, who had always been the glittering diamond of Genoa City, the woman who commanded boardrooms and galas with equal grace, was now reduced to a frightened, vulnerable soul reaching out for a hand she could not see. The emotional agony in the room was palpable, a thick fog of grief that choked the life out of the once powerful dynasty. How will the Newman children navigate this agonizing new reality while their own personal lives are simultaneously falling apart? Standing in the corner of the room, a silent, brooding monolith of a man, Victor Newman felt his heart shatter into a million jagged pieces. The great Victor Newman, a man who had manipulated global markets, crushed his enemies with ruthless precision, and controlled the fates of everyone in his orbit, was rendered entirely powerless by the cruel hand of fate. As he stared at his terrified wife, a tidal wave of profound, agonizing regret washed over him. He reflected on the past few months, remembering the toxic manipulations, his obsessive need for control, the dangerous games he played with Matt Clark, and the emotional warfare that had driven Nikki to return her wedding ring. He realized, with a sickening jolt of clarity, that he had wasted precious, irreplaceable time pushing away the only woman he had ever truly loved. Was this tragic twist of fate a cosmic punishment for his relentless hubris and his inability to put his wife's peace of mind above his insatiable thirst for power? The road to this devastating moment was paved with secrets, lies, and a desperate scramble for control. For weeks, Nikki had suffered in silence, enduring agonizing migraines and blurring vision, stubbornly hiding her deteriorating condition from Victor. She had refused his pity, unwilling to show weakness to a man who had recently treated her with such cold calculation. It was only through the tearful confessions of Victoria and Claire Grace Newman that Victor finally uncovered the horrifying truth about the optic nerve tumor. In a frantic bid to play God, Victor had mobilized his vast empire, utilizing every connection and limitless resource to bring the world's most elite surgical team from New York to Genoa City. He believed his wealth and power could buy Nikki's salvation. But as he looked at her unseeing eyes, the illusion of his omnipotence dissolved into dust. Can Victor ever forgive himself for his past transgressions, or will the guilt of his delayed actions consume his soul entirely? The grief in the hospital room quickly mutated into a blinding, explosive rage, courtesy of Victoria Newman. Unable to contain the venomous resentment that had been boiling in her veins, Victoria turned on her father with the ferocity of a protective lioness. Right there, amidst the beeping heart monitors and the sterile white walls, she launched a vicious, unforgiving verbal assault against Victor. She screamed that his toxic manipulations, his relentless psychological warfare, and his insatiable need to control every aspect of their lives had directly exacerbated Nikki's life-threatening condition. Victoria laid the blame for her mother's suffering squarely at Victor's feet, publicly rebelling against the patriarch in a way that shattered their father-daughter bond, perhaps beyond repair. Her words were daggers, slicing through Victor's defenses and exposing the ugly truth of his recent behavior. Will Victoria's explosive rebellion permanently sever her ties with the Newman Empire, or is this the brutal wake-up call Victor so desperately needed? Despite the venom spewed by his daughter and the heartbreaking reality of Nikki's initial rejection, Victor Newman made a silent, unshakable vow in the depths of his fractured soul. He approached the hospital bed, his usually commanding voice softening into a tender, trembling whisper as he took Nikki's trembling hands in his own. He swore to her, with every ounce of conviction in his being, that he would dedicate the rest of his life to making amends. He promised to be her eyes, her protector, and her unwavering pillar of strength through the grueling darkness. Victor realized that all his billions, his corporations, and his worldly conquests meant absolutely nothing if he could not share them with the love of his life. He vowed to stand by her side through every arduous physical therapy session and every moment of despair. But given the deep emotional wounds he has inflicted upon her recently, will Nikki accept Victor's guilt-driven devotion, or will she push him away to face the darkness alone? While the family rallied around Nikki's bedside, another insidious tragedy was silently unfolding within the Newman ranks. Nick Newman stood tall for his mother, presenting a facade of unwavering strength and reliability, but beneath the surface, he was fighting a terrifying, agonizing war of his own. Nick was trapped in the suffocating grip of a severe fentanyl addiction, a dark secret that threatened to pull him under the raging currents of his family's drama. Every smile he offered Nikki, every reassuring pat on the back he gave Victoria, was a monumental effort to mask the excruciating withdrawal symptoms and the desperate, gnawing cravings that consumed his thoughts. The golden boy of the Newman family was crumbling from the inside out, hiding his lethal dependency from the very people who needed him most. How much longer can Nick maintain this dangerous charade before his secret addiction inevitably explodes and causes another catastrophic family tragedy? The horrifying reality of Nick's addiction had recently culminated in a near-fatal overdose that sent shockwaves of terror through those few who knew the truth. In a moment of sheer desperation, driven mad by the physical and psychological demands of his dependency, Nick had consumed a tainted batch of drugs. The powerful Newman air had collapsed, his heart slowing to a terrifying crawl, hovering precariously on the razor-thin boundary between life and death. It was a stark, brutal reminder that addiction does not discriminate based on wealth, status, or family name. Nick's life hung in the balance, a tragic consequence of the trauma he had endured and the lethal coping mechanisms he had adopted to survive the relentless chaos of Genoa City. Will this horrifying brush with death finally force Nick to seek the professional rehabilitation he so desperately needs, or is he destined to succumb to the demons that haunt him? In a twist of fate so deeply ironic and twisted that it could only happen in Genoa City, the man who pulled Nick back from the brink of death was none other than Matt Clark. Matt, the historical antagonist who had subjected Nick and Sharon to unimaginable psychological and physical torture in the past, was now paradoxically his savior. Alongside Phyllis Summers, Matt had intervened during the overdose, preserving the life of the man he once sought to destroy. Matt's current state of amnesia has complicated the narrative, blurring the lines between villain and victim, but the fact remains that Nick owes his life to his greatest tormentor. This perverse reality is tearing Nick apart, forcing him to grapple with feelings of gratitude toward a monster. How will the Newman family reconcile the fact that their beloved son was saved by their most despised enemy, and what dark game is Matt Clark truly playing? As if the Newman family's medical and psychological crises were not enough to plunge Genoa City into chaos, a sinister storm was simultaneously brewing at the Abbott mansion. The sudden, inexplicable disappearance of Diane Jenkins Abbott has sent shockwaves of panic through the Abbott family. Diane, a woman known for her own history of grand manipulations and faked deaths, vanished without a trace, leaving behind an eerie silence and a multitude of terrifying questions. Jack Abbott and his son Kyle are spiraling into a state of frantic desperation, their minds racing with horrific scenarios of what might have befallen the woman they love. The grand halls of the Abbott estate feel chillingly empty, haunted by the ghost of Diane's sudden absence. Is Diane orchestrating another elaborate, vengeful scheme from the shadows, or has she fallen victim to a very real, very lethal threat? In the frantic search for Diane, one name immediately rose to the top of the suspect list, casting a dark, terrifying shadow over the investigation: Patty Williams. Patty's history is a tragic tapestry woven with severe psychiatric instability, violent outbursts, and a deeply rooted, highly dangerous obsession with Jack Abbott. From her days masquerading as Mary Jane Benson to the time she literally shot Jack, Patty has proven time and again that she is capable of unspeakable acts in the name of twisted love. Jack and Kyle are acutely aware of the danger Patty poses and the terrifying possibility that she has kidnapped Diane to eliminate her romantic rival is a nightmare come to life. With Patty's unpredictable nature and her knack for elaborate psychotic schemes, the stakes have never been higher. Has Patty Williams truly orchestrated Diane's disappearance to reclaim Jack, or is she merely a convenient scapegoat for a much darker conspiracy? Amidst the suffocating darkness of Nikki's blindness, Nick's lethal addiction, and Diane's terrifying disappearance, a fragile, unexpected romance is quietly blossoming. Holden Novak and Claire Newman have found themselves drawn to one another, finding a delicate solace in each other's arms while their respective family empires crumble around them. Their connection is a rare glimmer of light in an otherwise bleak landscape, a testament to the human need for comfort in times of profound crisis. However, this budding romance is built on a foundation of dangerous secrets. Holden is carrying the heavy, agonizing guilt of his dark past in Los Angeles, specifically the accidental death of an art dealer, a secret that Audra Charles is ruthlessly holding over his head. Will the toxic secrets of Holden's past inevitably surface to destroy his pure connection with Claire, or can their love survive the treacherous waters of Genoa City's elite? Returning to the heart of the Newman crisis, the road ahead for Nikki is fraught with unimaginable physical and emotional hurdles. The reality of her total blindness requires a grueling, intensive regimen of physical therapy and psychological counseling. Every step she takes in the dark is a battle against the overwhelming urge to surrender to despair. Yet, Nikki Newman is a survivor. Even in the pitch-black void, her indomitable spirit refuses to be entirely extinguished. The family desperately clings to the hope that the blindness is temporary, praying for a medical miracle that will restore her sight. The journey will test the limits of her endurance and the strength of the fractured family surrounding her. Will Nikki find the inner strength to conquer this terrifying new world, or will the darkness permanently alter the essence of the woman she once was? The landscape of Genoa City has been irrevocably altered by these cascading tragedies. The Newman and Abbott dynasties, once seemingly invincible pillars of power and wealth, are currently bleeding from profound internal